A little bit more difficult than one-step equations are two-step equations. Two-step equations have two steps to do, often adding and subtracting and multiplying at the same time. Okay? There's a hint, because sometimes when you're undoing something and when you're trying to remember the rules, you might undo the wrong thing first. Okay? We talked about when you're doing mental math calculations, you have bad maths, right? And that's when we're doing things. So when we're undoing things, we often have to, like you said, do SAMDEB. So when you're solving an equation like this, 2x minus 1 equals 7, if I told you in your head I took a number, I multiplied it by 2, and I subtracted 1, then I'm telling you the BEDMAS order that I did it. Right? I multiplied first, then I subtracted 1. But if I tell you that I got 7, and now in your head you're thinking he took a number, multiplied it by 2, subtracted 1, and got 7, when you figure out the number, you're undoing what I did. You would add 1 first and say, okay, so he had 8, and then he multiplied something by 2 to get 8. He had 4 to begin with. So this is what your brain does. When we're showing it in our work, the first thing you did was you added 1 to 7, which means you're technically adding 1 to both sides. And this is where the hint comes in play. Because whenever you have like terms, you want to put them together in an equation. And the minus 1 and the 7 are like terms, but they're on opposite sides of the equation. So what we do is we do to one side, we do to the other. We added 1 to both sides. That combined those like terms, and now you have 2 times something is equal to 8. Because if I add 1 to both sides, the plus 1 and the minus 1 would be 0, leaving me just with 2x on the left side, and 7 plus 1 would be 8. Then I could show my work saying the opposite of multiplying is dividing. Now I get x equals 4. So it's a two-step question because we had to add and subtract first, and then we had to divide. And the hint on what you should do first is always that idea, if I have like terms, I should combine them. And this is going to help us with multi-step solving equations later on. Okay, so our goal is to get the variable by itself. We have some like terms here, so I'm going to start with that. I'm going to subtract 4 on both sides. That gives me 5a is equal to 5. What's the opposite of multiplying? The opposite of multiplying is dividing. So I divide both sides by 5, and I get a equals 1. And you'll find that when we start using these steps, it allows us to solve quicker than if you tried to do it in your head. I have a number times 5 plus 4 equals 9. Sometimes it gets too much for your brain to hold all those numbers to figure it out at once. Some of you are very good at that. But these steps, you'll find, make it easier. Okay? Here's an interesting one, because we have 2 minus 5 times a number is 22. I think this is a great example of if you tried to do it in your head, things aren't working very well for you. We have like terms, the 2 and the minus 22. If I want to get rid of a 2, I'd have to subtract 2. Everybody's okay with the 20 on this side. Sometimes mistakes are made with negatives on this side. On the left-hand side, do you see that 2 and minus 2? That'll be 0. But we would still be left with a minus 5b. That negative in front of the 5 would stay with that 5. And now, to get things by itself, to get the b by itself, we would have to divide by negative 5 And my answer for B is -4. So we're trying to combine our like terms. That's often telling us what we need to do for our first step. And then we're left with a one-step equation, which makes life easy. So here's 3 to try on your own. I'll put the answers up in a second. How do you feel? Do you think you're ready to do all the questions on your own? You think so? Okay. So again, I'll give you about a minute per 3 questions. Then I'll put the answers up. All right, here are the first ones showing my work. I would add 5 and add 5, and then I would get 2y is equal to 14. Then I divide by 2, y is equal to 7. Second one, subtract 7, gives me 3m equals 12. Divide by 3, and m is equal to 4. And for the third one, I would subtract 5 and subtract 5. The negative would stay with the 3. I get negative 3v equals 7. Divide by negative 3, and we would get v is equal to negative 7/3, and you can leave it like that, or you can change it to negative 2 1/3, or you could type it into your calculator and get negative 2.33. I actually prefer leaving it as an improper fraction like this, because as we do more and more math, it's easier to do math with improper fractions than with other forms of fractions. Okay. Again, 1 minute for these ones. And if you get ahead, then you can go to worksheets 1, 2, and 3 and finish them up. All right, I'll put the answers for these 3 up, see how you did. We have like terms, and the opposite of dividing is multiplying. Oh yeah, I said I'd like to circle my answers and I haven't been doing it. -3, -3. All right, check your answers on those three. How did you do? All right. So, coming up, we will be having a tornado drill, which is less well known than a fire drill. No, coming up in a couple weeks. But if there was a tornado drill warning and you were in my class, okay, the safest places in the building are rooms that don't have outside walls, especially rooms that don't have outside walls and windows. So since we're on the second floor, the roof is considered an outside wall. This isn't a safe place to be. And so they have designated safe places for each classroom to go. My classroom, we go downstairs to the theater. The theater is a good place because it's not an outside wall, okay? But you also want to make sure that you're not sitting underneath hanging lights or anything in that theater, because if they shake and fall down on you, that would be bad. So that's our safety spot. It's a pretty good safety spot for my class. There are some classes, there's only so many safe spaces in the school. There are some classes whose safe place is like the main floor boys' washroom. Can you imagine the whole class? We have to huddle in a washroom till the tornado passes. Yeah, so, right? I guess there's positive and negative to everything, right? If you're stuck in the theater and you have to pee, you'll just have to wait. Probably if you're stuck in the washroom with 20 of your classmates and you have to pee, you probably just wait as well there. Well, fortunately, we're not in an earthquake zone, so we don't have to practice that. But there would be some schools in different places in the world that would have earthquake practices. I think they go underneath your desk is the safety. Okay. Check these next ones how you did. Subtract 3 on both sides gives me p divided by 2 equals 5. Opposite of dividing is multiplying. Check those 3. And then, of course, once we get into the last 3 with decimals, you may want to use your calculator. All right, here are the answers for the last one. Again, the idea is if you have like terms, you want to put those together first. That really helps you with deciding what you should do first. And again, once we get into decimals, you might feel like you need to use your calculator. That is fine. Although if you like to challenge yourselves, try to do it mental math. And again, this one I would leave as 11 over 5. Yeah, if you put that one as, it would be perfectly fine if you decided to write this as 2.2. Yeah. And sometimes the context of the question, you might want to write it as a decimal more than a fraction. But often in math, if you need to do more math later on, then you'd like to leave it as a fraction. Yes. Yeah. Okay. So we are done another section, which I will pause the video.